You, a correspondence school grad, is marrying my Emily.
I'd been dating Emily since we were students, and we finally decided to get married. However, when I went to tell her father, a successful family doctor, about our engagement, I was left speechless. He turned beet red and vehemently opposed the idea.
Absolutely not. Don't be an idiot. Emily will not marry someone like you.
Emily's father was furious, tearing through his hair in outrage. He was grinding his teeth so hard that you could hear them.
Emily is my precious, precious only daughter. And you? Do you really think I'd let her marry someone with such a low education? If she marries someone like you, even her kids will turn out stupid. It's absolutely not happening.
His voice cracked as he shouted at me. Having been with Emily for so long, I'd assumed he would be more accepting. But at that moment, I couldn't muster a response. Overwhelmed, Emily ran out of the house. Little did I or Emily's father know that just a few years later, we'd be facing a situation far more serious than any quarrel. My name is Logan Parker. I grew up next to a girl named Emily Johnson, and we've been best friends since childhood, often playing together. I would visit Emily's house, and she would sometimes come to mine. Around the time we were about to graduate from preschool, we once sat under a heated coffee table at Emily's house, eating oranges and said, "Even when we're in elementary school, let's eat oranges under this table together. Not just in elementary school. Even when we grow up, even when we're old, let's get married when we grow up." Yeah. Making that marriage promise is one of my fondest memories. Both Emily's mother and my mother warmly watched over our close-knit friendship. Emily's mother passed away unexpectedly when we were in elementary school. The cause was cervical cancer. Throughout the funeral, Emily cried and clung to her mother's casket, and seeing that, I too was overcome with tears. In my emotional state, I apparently told my mom, "I'll protect Emily." I don't personally remember saying anything like that, but after Emily's mom passed away and I saw how downcast Emily became, I spent every day comforting her. Through spending that time together, I truly began to feel a deep desire to protect Emily. Emily's father, named Jack, is a physician who's so well respected in our hometown that there's hardly anyone who doesn't know or trust him. He's a primary care physician, but he'll see you if you've hit your head or have other injuries, and he'll advise whether you should go to the city's major hospital. However, most ailments usually get better with Jack's treatments and prescriptions. From the time I was a baby, getting my shots, through my elementary school days with chicken pox and mumps, to minor coughs or stomach aches, whenever I felt under the weather, I was promptly taken to Jack. I always hated shots and cried every time, but when Emily was around, I wouldn't cry. So, during vaccinations, we were always brought in together, which now brings back fond memories. By the time we were in 9th grade, Emily and I planned to attend the same high school and started studying together daily at Emily's home. At her place, there was a housekeeper named Tessa, who took care of all household chores on behalf of the always busy Jack. As a result, Emily could fully devote herself to her club activities and SAT prep. The muffins that Tessa made for snacks were incredibly delicious, and we'd often have them made to accompany our study sessions, eating them together. And with all that hard work, she got accepted into the top college in an area that was a series of bus and subway rides away. Both my parents and Jack were thrilled about our acceptance. By this time, Emily had fully adjusted to life without her mother. Tessa's cheerful presence might have played a big role in that. She used to shed tears quite often when she was in elementary school, but now she hardly ever cries, showing me her bright smile every day. And yet, because of me, I ended up dimming the smile on Emily's face. It was back in winter of first year high school. When I went to Jack's for the flu shot, he stopped me as I was leaving and had me sit back down in the examination chair. He carefully checked around my neck and under my arms.
I hope I'm just overthinking this, but it seems like your lymph nodes are a bit swollen. Logan, you should visit the town's hospital with your mom.
Jack looked more serious than usual, and I went home trying to suppress the rising anxiety. Then, the following Monday, I went to the town's hospital with a referral and found out I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's not a disease that simply gets better. In fact, I don't even know if it will get better at all. I dropped out of high school to focus on my treatment. At first, the stark reality of mortality that suddenly became clear was terrifying. For the few days between the diagnosis and being admitted to the hospital, I kept the curtains closed in my house, scared of the passage of time. Emily just sat by my side without saying a word. I might lash out given my mental state right now. You should go home. Even when I told her that, Emily wouldn't leave.
You can lash out as much as you want, but you shouldn't be alone right now.
I used to think Emily was just a gentle girl, but over time she transformed into a strong woman. Seeing that I couldn't bring myself to leave my room, she kindly brought me meals. I don't want to eat this. I knew my mom was concerned about me and was preparing nutritious meals. Knowing that I wouldn't be able to enjoy her home-cooked meals once I got admitted to the hospital, she was really going the extra mile. Yet, I responded like that.
You don't have to eat it all. Just take a bite while it's still warm.
Saying this, Emily scooped up a spoonful of the creamy stew my mom had made and offered it to me. I don't want it. As I said this, tears were rolling down my cheeks. Then, Emily forcibly fed me the stew. The flavor of that stew was unlike any other I'd ever tasted. It was sweeter, creamier, and the richness of the vegetables permeated throughout. It was hands down the most delicious stew I'd ever eaten. Before I realized it, I was tightly holding onto my spoon and tears streaming down my face. I finished the entire plate. Emily,
What is it?
I promise I'll come back. I'll get better, I swear. When I get discharged, I want to eat your stew next time.
Got it. I'll learn how to make stew from your mom and whip up something really delicious. So, you better get well and come home from the hospital.
Saying this, Emily hugged me tightly. The two of us clung tightly to each other, tears streaming down our faces. I couldn't let Emily down, not after the promise we made. I vowed deep in my heart to endure whatever treatment was ahead of me. But that being said, the treatment for lymphoma was no walk in the park. My organs suffered due to the heavy medications, and radiation therapy caused my hair to fall out. The hardest part was watching fellow patients, sharing my room, suddenly take a turn for the worse and not come back. I couldn't help but wonder if I'd meet the same fate. The fear was almost unbearable. Through all the uncertainty, Emily was the constant by my side. After her club activities, Emily would visit the hospital almost daily, and we'd spend our time in the visitors' lounge until visiting hours ended. She'd share what happened at school that day, mention that Jack was worried about me, and also indulge in some school gossip about who's dating who. I may have had to drop out of school, but thanks to Emily's stories, it felt like I was still attending. Those days went on for quite a while. Thanks to the doctors and nurses, my condition began to improve little by little. Although my friends, including Emily, were now in their senior year of high school, and it seemed unlikely I'd ever go back, I was filled with joy knowing I was getting closer to remission. Beside Emily in the visitors' lounge, I decided to start studying again. My education had halted during my freshman year of high school, so it was like starting over, but we both settled into a daily study routine. Whenever I struggled with a concept, Emily was there to help. If Emily also didn't know, I'd write a letter to my former high school teachers for assistance. Despite no longer being their student, each teacher would diligently respond with explanations, which Emily would then share with me. Everyone was rooting for me. Feeling this overwhelming support reignited my waning passion for learning. The day finally came for me to leave the hospital and head home. For dinner, Emily made a creamy chicken stew, following a recipe she'd learned from my mom. Recalling the same dish from the night before my hospitalization, tears flowed uncontrollably from me, Emily, and both my parents. Rehabilitation at home was challenging up until I was told I was in remission, but it felt much lighter than the hospital days. Emily, influenced by my hospitalization experience, decided to pursue a career in nursing. She was inspired by the pivotal roles nurses played within the hospital. Watching Emily work hard in nursing school, I decided to attend an online high school. After finishing the online high school, I aimed to get a college admission qualification and, if possible, become a doctor. Now that I'm getting better, I have a strong desire to heal others, just like I was healed. Once I started learning in the online high school, I studied with relentless determination. Emily was always by my side, reviewing what she learned in school that day while I tackled college entrance exam questions. While other guys my age already had cars or motorcycles, taking others on drives, or working part-time jobs to treat them to fancy meals, I felt guilty still being a student. But Emily never seemed bothered by it.
Let's move at our own pace. I'm just happy that you've gotten better.
And that's what she said. Then, in the spring when Emily graduated from nursing school, I was accepted into the medical school at a university in New York. I truly wanted to bring her with me to New York, but Emily had secured a job at the hospital where I was admitted.
Study until you're satisfied. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes.
Those were Emily's words as I boarded the train to New York. I'll definitely come back here. I looked into her eyes and made a firm promise. Although I was near her physically during my hospitalization, this time I'll be in New York. Even though I've seen Emily almost every day since we were little, the thought of not seeing her for a while was nerve-wracking. But with all the time we've shared in my heart, I sank into the train seat. I'll become a doctor in New York, and then, I'm sure, I'll return to my hometown. I'm going to be a doctor like Jack. Feeling the familiar city fade away, I gently clenched both hands. Years went by. I successfully passed the medical board exam. I finished my internship and came back to my hometown. Of course, while I was in New York, I stayed in touch with Emily and we met up during long breaks. But now, we can be together all the time, closer than ever before. That's because we decided to tie the knot this spring. After getting off the train, I transferred to the local rail. Straight from the hometown station, I popped over to Emily's place. It's Logan. I came back today. The one who greeted me was their helper, Tessa.
I heard the news. Logan, you're getting married to Emily. Congratulations. You both have been through so much, but you've overcome it together. Truly, congrats.
Tessa said, tears streaming down her face.
There really was a lot, wasn't there?
Emily replied with a gentle smile. I'm sorry for all the lonely times I've caused you, but I promise we won't be apart anymore, even though our night shifts might be different.
Compared to when you were in New York and we couldn't meet, those shifts will feel like a moment, just a moment.
Emily joked, and the three of them laughed. They relaxed, sipping on the tea that Tessa had brewed, waiting for Jack to come home. Once Jack returned, we'd exchange marriage greetings. Once that was over, the four of us would sit down again, enjoying our tea while sharing laughs. Was what I intended.
You're telling me you and my Emily are getting married?
What, Jack? I've been with Emily for so long. The last thing I expected was Jack opposing us now. I was caught off guard and at a loss for words.
Absolutely not. Don't talk nonsense. I'll never let you have Emily.
Emily's father was furious, tearing through his hair in outrage.
Emily's.
Jack seemed to clench his molars tightly after saying that. I could hear a distinct grinding sound.
She's my precious, precious only daughter. And you, with your lack of education, think I'd let her be with someone like you? Her kids will turn out dumb too. Absolutely not.
Jack's voice cracked in places as he yelled at me. Something seemed off to me. Even though we hadn't seen each other recently, I've known Jack for years. He's not the kind of person to say something like this.
Dad,
Emily stood up with a loud thud.
how could you say such a thing about Logan? Just because you have a graduate degree doesn't mean you can belittle him. And we've been together for so long. You know that, Dad? I can't believe you'd say something like that to Logan. Unbelievable.
Overwhelmed, Emily stormed out of the house.
That's right, Jack. Do you know how much these two care for each other? Emily's absolutely right.
I know. I do know that.
Tessa backed us up, but Jack just closed his eyes and shook his head. Sir, I cautiously addressed Jack, trying to gauge his mood. Jack said, you have to understand how I feel. With that, he walked into his room and slammed the door shut. It seemed like Tessa didn't notice, and since Emily wasn't even in the house anymore, I think I was the only one who realized that Jack was holding something back. I suspect he was holding back tears. His voice had faltered towards the end. I didn't know why he was so emotional, but I could tell that what he said to me wasn't really how he felt. Maybe he was thinking about when my illness relapsed. Not wanting to put Emily through any pain. Tessa, I'm going to go look for Emily.
I can't even begin to apologize. I never thought he'd say something like that to you. Still, you're going to look for Emily.
I don't think Jack really meant what he said. He's not the type to say things like that, and he seemed to be on the verge of tears at the end. I believe some things going on. Tessa, please stay here and support him. I'm going to look for Emily. I left Emily's house. Even though it's March, it's still a bit chilly outside. Without even putting on a coat, I run to the places where Emily might have gone. I found her in the second cafe I checked. Emily repeatedly apologized for causing me distress. I told her that it didn't matter and that she should come home, but she didn't agree. Eventually, Emily began living alone near her workplace. A few months later, I recently received a call from Emily, who hasn't been feeling well, saying she was hospitalized. I rushed to her room. When I asked, she said she came to the hospital because of severe dizziness and they admitted her for tests. It seems she has severe anemia, and they think it's best to investigate the cause. Please, let it be nothing serious. I was on call that day too, so during my breaks, I'd check in and hope the tests wouldn't find anything. However, I soon got word that they found stage 2 cervical cancer. Though Emily was putting on a brave face, and even though they caught it early, it's the same disease her mother had passed away from. It's impossible not to feel anxious. I kept in touch as much as I could until I got off work. Once I was done with my shift, I headed straight to Emily's room. To my surprise, Jack had already made his way there. Emily. I hadn't properly spoken to Jack since that marriage introduction, but none of that mattered now. I rushed over to where Emily was lying in bed.
What the hell? It's you. You're still hanging around Emily. It's because of jerks like you she's sick.
Sir, please, you can't speak to the doctor like that.
A young doctor, who seemed to have been explaining Emily's condition to both her and Jack, quickly tried to calm Jack down.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Parker. Johnson has been really distressed since hearing the news.
You too. Don't be so formal with this guy.
No, sir. This is Dr. Parker. He graduated from Harvard Medical School and went into surgery. He's one of the top young doctors in this hospital. He's had many successful cancer surgeries. They even say if Dr. Parker's handling it, you're in good hands.
This guy, a doctor, a Harvard grad and a surgeon.
Jack looked at me in disbelief. Yes, after graduating from an online high school, I pursued my medical degree in New York. Now, I'll be Emily's primary physician. I'll make sure her surgery succeeds, even if it's the last thing I do. Please, trust me with Emily's care. Jack stood there for a while, eyes wide in surprise.
Dad, Logan worked incredibly hard and made it into Harvard. He really pushed himself in college and became a doctor. I want Logan to perform the surgery. I wouldn't trust anyone else but Logan.
Emily quietly said, Jack, I've done several surgeries for cervical cancer. I want to provide the best treatment for Emily. Would you let me be her primary physician?
Logan.
Regaining his composure, Jack took my hand.
I couldn't protect my wife. I regret every day that if I had just paid more attention to her, maybe we would have caught her illness sooner. And now, even Emily has the same disease. When you and Emily told me you two were getting married, I said some horrible things. I didn't mean any of them. I just couldn't bear the thought of letting Emily go, and I wanted her to stay with me, but I couldn't find a valid reason to object, especially when the man was you. I thought I finally had a reason to object, so I said those things. I know it might be too much to ask for forgiveness now, especially from the two of you, but I really hope you can forgive me.
Jack said with a choked voice, clutching my hand tightly. Jack, don't worry. I always knew those weren't your true feelings. And as for Emily, she might have been angry, but deep down, She truly loves you, Jack. That's why she called you as soon as she found out about her illness. Let's fight Emily's disease together." The young doctor who was explaining the test results seemed to sense the mood and quietly left the room. The three of us held hands, promising each other the success of the surgery. Given Emily's young age, we quickly proceeded with the surgery. I was the lead surgeon, and the operation was a success. Fast forward 5 years. As her primary doctor, I deemed the chance of recurrence to be incredibly low, and so we decided to conclude her treatment for now.
I want to thank you again, Logan, for saving Emily, and I deeply apologize for saying those harsh things to you before,"
Jack said, deeply bowing his head in the car on our way back from the hospital. "Don't be, Jack. What I did was just my duty as a doctor. Besides, it was you who inspired me. Watching you tirelessly work in community medicine made me want to become a doctor. If we trace back the recovery of Emily's illness, it's all because of your contributions, Jack. Also, you saved my life. If you hadn't noticed the swelling in my lymph nodes back in high school, I wouldn't be here today."
We can't keep bringing that up, Logan.
Emily, who always tears up when mentioning their high school days, interjected. "Anyway, no need for apologies anymore. I knew back then that wasn't your true feeling, Jack. Emily was ready to marry without your blessing, but I was the one who said we should wait a bit longer."
I see. Thank you, Emily. I'm so grateful to have Logan by your side. Logan, please continue to take care of my daughter.
And so, after a long journey, Emily and I finally received the blessing for our marriage. We decided to have the wedding ceremony in the courtyard of Jack's clinic. There are wedding venues in our town, but they aren't exactly up to date. If we traveled to the county seat, we'd have a lot of options, but that would make it inconvenient for our guests. Considering all that, we both felt that holding it at the clinic, which held so many fond memories and was loved by the community, was the best decision. Jack attended the ceremony holding a picture of Emily's late mother, and many from the community came to support. Of course, many of our classmates from elementary, middle, and high school also joined, making it a wedding to remember. Next spring, I plan to officially take over Jack's clinic. Of course, for a while, Jack will continue to work part-time alongside me. He'll teach me the ropes of community medicine. I aim to be a trusted and beloved primary care physician in our community, just like Jack. The real journey starts from here,